Jonathan Brooks from Carolina Pen Company, and as you can see, he has quite the display here with us for the 2024 DC Pen Show. So, Jonathan, we wanted to just ask you, as far as when it comes to doing collabs and making pens, like tell us that process and kind of how it plays out.
A lot of it is really organic. A lot of the times the companies will reach out to me and give me an idea of the colors they're wanting. And for the most part, they trust me well enough to where I can just make a couple different samples, and then I'll send them to them for them to turn into a pen and get a finished product sample. And from there, they'll tell me if they love it or hate it, or if I can make small alterations. And usually within one alteration, if that, we're usually already good to go. They'll place the order, I make it, and we get it done. It's really simple.
That's cool. So if I were to ask you, just say 2024, what would you say was your favorite collab that you were able to do this year?
It might not have happened yet. It might be, I'm not sure the time frame if it's going to be in 2024 or not. And I can't talk about it yet. So we're going to go with number 2 on my list, because then if it goes through, it's going to be number 1. But I did the golden abalone with Atlas stations and Leonardo. That one was a lot of fun. They came out looking amazing. And
I actually just purchased one of those yesterday.
Oh, thank you very much. And there's also the Visconti Fire and Air that came out about a month ago. That was a 4-pen collaboration from carrying over from last year. And let's see. Yeah, I'd have to say those 2 are probably my favorites for the year so far.
Okay, cool. Now, as far as between like making blanks or making pens, what's your favorite?
Making blanks. The blanks, you can get way more creative color-wise and explore different options. With the pens, for me, the making of the pens is just exposing all the work that went into the making of the material. You're just unveiling what's hidden inside of it.
That makes sense. All right. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for letting us interview you, and we appreciate it. We are here at the DC Pen Show with Ben from Mayfair Pens, and we just wanted to talk to Ben a little bit about his kind of niche in the market. Ben has some really creative designs, and we just really wanted to talk to him and ask him a few questions about it. So Ben, what got you started into making fountain pens?
So I started writing with fountain pens probably like 2020, and so I was kind of a newer convert, and I just kind of did a lot of research on like how they're made and kind of worked through that process. Probably spent a couple of months doing a deep dive, just understanding the process, and just decided, you know what, I think I can do this, and I eventually accumulated all the things I needed and got started, and found out that it was much harder than I thought it was going to be. And from there, it was just breaking a lot of things at the very beginning, and one day at a time, and eventually I sort of learned how to do it. But I think you mentioned, I have some unique shapes. I think actually not knowing what I was doing was one of the things that led me to the shapes, because I think a lot of people learn from different people and actually go in the shops and somebody says, this is how you do things, which is super helpful. I didn't do that, so I had no preconceived notions for how to do anything, and I think some of the weird things I did and things I probably did wrong led to some of the interesting shapes.
So Ben, as far as your favorite design and the one that is most difficult to make, can you show us that and tell us the name of it?
So I think kind of the first model that I really started making was what I call the Noldor model, which is this model with it's all a flush joint with a small section here that curves in and your hand kind of falls right in that grip section. So I kind of consider that my flagship model, and everything kind of started from there. From there I kind of moved on to something where the section gets longer, but it's still kind of the same shape. And I like that just because it allows you to kind of mix different materials and match things and do some fun aesthetic things. And then from there, I just have made just little variations like what I call my Goldberry model, which is a little bit newer with a curved cap. Again, same aesthetics on the back, but it curves into the cap, which I've done some kind of cool things with. Like for the show, I have made flower pins, so you've got kind of like that stem aesthetic, and then you've got that tulip-shaped cap, which I'm very proud of. Ironically, though, probably my hardest model is actually this Larlin model, which is a traditional cigar shape, but the threads are in the very front of the model. And it's just because there's no stop where you normally would have threads, and the way it works, it just requires a lot of getting the dimensions just right to make everything work perfectly, and the threads are way down in the cap, which just makes it a very challenging process and a little bit different than what I normally do. So I think that actually might be the one that's the hardest.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much for talking with us today. This is Ben at Mayfair Pens, and we will have him linked below so that you can check out his Instagram. And thank you so much for joining us. So we are here at the DC Pen Show with Tim from Turnt Pen Co. So hey, thanks for joining our little interview today. So I guess our question for you would be, what came first, the blank making, or the pen making?
It was the pen making was first. That was like right before COVID, like late 2019 is when I got started with all that. And then as the pandemic went on, I got into pens, and then ultimately decided I wanted to try my hand at blanks as well. That's a really tough one. They're both a lot of fun. I would say when it comes to the blanks, I like that it's kind of a quicker turnaround on seeing something new, so to speak. So like, it takes about a half hour to make a batch of blanks, and then a few hours later you pull them out and you've got something brand new. It's like Christmas morning every time you pull them out. But with the pens, you can do some like unique combinations, and I do think when you do make a new blank, the best part is seeing it in pen form. So they kind of, I couldn't pick which one I like more. I love them both for different reasons.
I unfortunately lost the audio on the rest of our interview, so I apologize for that. But I did just want to come on here and thank Tim for coming on and doing the interview with me, and I super appreciate it. Tim is still doing blanks and sells blanks on his website, but he will not be doing any pens for the rest of the year because him and his wife are expecting a new little baby. So thank you for watching this interview, and thank you, Tim from Turnt Pen Co. We are here with Charlie Harvey from Wood Wonders of North Carolina, and we're just going to talk to Charlie a little bit today. So Charlie, one of the questions that our viewers have is, what got you into making pens?
I was doing Christmas shows selling other wooden things, and I met Carl Fisher, and he had the custom pens, and I was fascinated by that and decided to try to learn, and ended up watching a lot of YouTube videos to try to figure out how to do it on my own.
Okay, that's cool. Now, as far as making the pens, like, what kind of struggles or stumbles, do you have with making them? Like, what things can kind of make it difficult to actually do it?
Well, part of the hardest thing about making these is, for me, is the section, because it's so small, the threading is so tiny that I usually start with the section, because if the section fails, then I know not to continue with the pen if I want the pen to all match. And another thing is, sometimes you get blanks for pens that are square, and I really don't love making the square things round. I've said that before, but it just makes a mess, and it seems tedious, and it has to be pretty kind of exact to be right, or else you lose material for the body. So yeah, that's some of the stuff that makes it harder.
So you would find, as far as when you're looking at blanks that you're purchasing, you prefer to purchase the ones that are already kind of made round versus square. It makes it easier to actually make the pen.
155% of the time, yes.
Yes. So what, out of your pen models, like what's your favorite model that you make?
That would have to be the Frenchy model, because it's smooth and it's nice, and it's a fairly simple shape to make, and that was my first model. And it was my first kind of my design after seeing all these other fantastic pens. And so I kind of liked it and decided to come up with it. And here it is. It's the Frenchy model, my favorite model.
Now, as far as what you find to be one of your most difficult pens, what would you say that is?
I would have to say the Deco model, because it has a narrow narrow joint where their cap and body meet. And getting that to be flush sometimes is quite a challenge. I do the bodies first, and if I go too far, then the cap has to be super thin, which makes that more challenging for sure.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, wonderful. We appreciate you talking to us here today, and come by and take a look at Charlie's stuff here at the DC Pen Show this weekend. And thank you so much, Charlie. We are here with Ronnie from Analog Notes Pens, and we're at the 2024 DC Pen Show. So, Ronnie, we just wanted to ask you, what got you started into making pens?
Yeah, so a number of years ago, just sitting around, I mentioned to my wife, at the time I had a little kit pen, a wood twist pen, and I mentioned to her, it's like, oh, that's something I'd be interested in getting into. And nonchalant, didn't have any serious intention behind it, but that year for Christmas, she decided to buy me a wood lathe. So I had to clear out a space in our shed, which was full of stuff at the time, build a shop, and then I started to get into collecting fountain pens and things like that, and they just kind of merged together. So it's eventually grown to the point where now I have our own separate shop dedicated to making pens and casting resin, things like that. And it's been a fun journey so far.
Now, do you have any part of pen making that you would find as being difficult or a struggle in any way?
So I would say, as a pen maker, the challenge is what is fun, at least in my opinion. But there's one part I think that is a little bit laborious, and that is internal polishing. And you can probably ask other pen makers. It's a nice effect to get a clear polish in the inside of a pen, but at the same time, it just takes forever. It's not that it's necessarily difficult, but it just takes a long time. So I would say internal polishing is one of those things that would be more of a struggle in the pen making business.
Okay, and as far as the pens that you make, do you have a favorite model that you like to make most frequently?
I guess I would say I'm perhaps most proud of the Ohm model. I like the clip. I'm partial to pens with clips, and I like the clip design is unique to us, and I like to mock them up in computer software and have them made. It's a lot of fun. But I would say my own model is the one I like to make the most.
Okay, and how about your most difficult model to make?
Most difficult? That's tricky. Usually, it's not the model that's difficult to make, but oftentimes materials that's difficult. So, for instance, like this Crazy Fiber pen, it's a micarta. It's very delicate material at times, and it can break and fray. So, stuff like this is generally is challenging as opposed to, say, a specific model.
Okay, well, wonderful. We thank you so much, Ronnie, for joining us for our interview. And you guys can come by and check out Ronnie's pens here at the DC Pen Show this weekend. Thank you. We are here with Joe at Little Pen Designs at the 2024 DC Pen Show. Joe, thank you for joining us for our interview. So we wanted to just ask, one of the pens that you're pretty well known for here and kind of on Instagram is your Candy Nougat pen. And we just wanted to kind of talk to you about that, talk to you about, how it's made and, any kind of pitfalls or difficulties that you had with making the pen as you kind of made the process and figured it out.
Yeah, so the Candy Nugget started out with it's an acrylic resin that I found, a commercial acrylic resin, and when I saw it, that's the first thing it reminded me of was Candy Nugget candy that I had when I was a kid, and so I tried to make pens out of it. As pen makers, we're always looking at anything and thinking, hey, I think I can make a pen out of that. So that's what I did with Candy Nugget. The challenges that I had with it though was making the cap. In the original design, the threading of acrylic is very brittle, so it cracks very easily. And I had a few that I tried out. I kept them probably for a month to see how they work, and I could see that it would start to crack. So then I decided to do a redesign on it and actually cast a complementing accent for both the cap and the finial accents that would go with the pen. And so that's how I created the latest design now.
Okay, wonderful. Now, so it's actually like a blank. The pen body itself is a blank.
It's what they call a flat blank. So it's a square blank made in a flat mold, and then you have to round it out to a rod shape.
Okay.
So it takes a little extra time to.
Do you find that difficult?
I can tell you that most pen makers don't like making square blanks round. It takes added time. It's added time to the process, and so at that point is when you can have things go wrong. Get a lot of chipping or something like that.
Right. So now, how long have you been making pens?
So I've been making pens since 2018. But before that, like most of the makers here, I made a kit pen, what's known as component pens or kit pens. Basically, you're putting a brass tube inside of. Basically, I can show you one. You can put a brass tube inside of a material. This is happens to be a cellulose, and you turn it round, and then you put all of this stuff is what you buy, is the hardware for it. And that's known as a kit pen. The difference with these is every piece of this is made except for the nib and sometimes the clips.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us for the interview. And you guys can check out Joe's stuff here at the DC Pen Show this weekend. And we thank you, Joe, for joining us.
All right, thank you so much.
So I am here this morning at the DC Pen Show with Motor City Pens, and this is Alex. He is one of the younger makers that we have here, and we just figured we'd come by and talk to him about some of his models and some of the new innovations that he's doing here in the pen community. Hello, Alex.
Hi, how are you?
All right, so we hear that you have kind of a unique pen, and we were hoping that maybe you could explain it to us.
Sure. So I've been making pens for like a little over a year and a half, and I was kind of trying to find a way to differentiate myself, and I thought I would start trying to come up with a material that would change color in your hand, like a mood ring. So here on this side of the table, we have 15 different thermal temperature sensitive pens. Like this one is solid, all three pieces, and it's like a dark. So this one is like a dark green. It's solid thermal. If you heat it up, since it's cold in here, it goes to a yellow. Normally it takes like a minute or two of writing with it in your hand if you have like normal temperature hands. Sometimes it'll even change in like the sunlight. This one is like a pink, goes to like a cream color, orange to yellow, purple to pink, and this is my favorite, purple to turquoise. And then there's also red to yellow, and I have 10 or 12 other colors that I can make, from like a dark blue, purple to orange, purple to turquoise, purple to pink, red to green, then blue to purple, blue to pink.
Now, do you do customs?
Yeah, I am accepting custom orders. I can't give like a great delivery date since I'm going to college. I'll still be able to make pens, probably just not at the rate that I can now. But I do accept custom orders. Whatever's left over will be on my website. So if you guys want any thermal shift pens, you know where I am. It's motorcitypens.com. That's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Alex. We appreciate you showing us your little innovative pen. And ladies, if you're like me in midlife, these color changing pens would be pretty cool. We are here at the DC Pen Show with Rich from River City Pen Co. And hey, Rich, thanks for joining us. And so we just wanted to talk to you a little bit about how you got started into pen making and how long you've been doing it.
Well, I've been doing it for about 10 years now, a little bit over 10 years. I got started from a friend of mine who also made pens. We made the pens from the kits and a lot of ballpoint pens, and kind of as time went along, we started to evolve into making more custom pens like I'm making today.
Now, as far as pen making goes, do you have one that you find is more difficult to make, like a specific model?
Model-wise, not so much. Material-wise, I make the Operex, which is a synthetic opal pen. That was a little bit more difficult because the material is a little bit more delicate. So it does take a little bit more care, and it's a little bit more of a premium material. So when you do mess up a piece, it hurts a little bit more than when you're building your standard pens.
Yeah, I can definitely see that for sure. Now, do you have a model that you consider to be your favorite model that you make?
As far as for myself, I really like my Arlington models. I like a big pen. This is the biggest pen that I make. I make it in a standard Arlington, and I make it in an extra long Arlington. It's about a centimeter longer than the standard one, and that's my personal favorite.
Okay. Now, as far as being a bespoke pen maker, like what challenges do you face in doing it?
Right now, time is my biggest challenge. I do work full time besides making pens, so doing a lot of shows. I do about 7 a year, so just having time to build inventory and as well as managing custom orders, that's my biggest challenge.
Yeah, I can see that. I think that's a common theme that we're seeing. A lot of the makers are working full-time on top of doing it as well. So it's kind of like a labor of love where you're working with your hobby and you're doing that. Well, thank you so much, Rich, for joining our little interview. We appreciate it. And you can see Rich here at the DC Pen Show, River City Pen Co. We will have him linked below in the description. Thank you so much, Rich. With the nib grinder. Mark, is that Bacchus? Yeah, hi Mark. So yesterday Mark actually worked on one of my pens for me, so I thought I'd come by and just talk to him as one of the nib smiths here at the DC Pen Show. So Mark, can you just tell us, like, how did you end up getting into working on nibs?
Yeah, so I collected pins for a long time, and as part of that process, I had some of my nibs ground, and then just kind of evolved from there. At some point, I just kept watching other nib grinders, and just kind of got into it. A mentor, he let me ask him questions about grinding and how to do some of the nib work, and so yeah, it just kind of went from there.
Now, is this what you do full time now?
It is. I do this every day, all day. Yep.
Now, okay, so for people that don't end up getting to the pen shows, how can they work with you as far as, sending you something to get work done?
Yeah, so I have my website, nibgrinder.com, has all my details. There's a form, and you can go there. You can also email mark@nibgrinder.com if you have any questions. You can message me on Instagram. Email's probably better, yeah.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Mark, and thank you for taking the time. So we are here this afternoon with Mark. Mark is so we were able to take care of that for me.
Whoa, there's this guy. Keep touching all your pens. No, you're gonna keep touching them all. Make my way around.
And Mark's nib grinding company is actually Nib Grinder. Just kind of seeing all of his tools, and we have a little sign-up list, so get yourself in here.
Good shit.
We are here at the 2024 DC Pen Show with Michaela from White Bear Pens. Michaela is listed as one of the new makers here at the Pen Show, and so we thought we'd just stop by and talk with her and ask her a few questions. Michaela, so when did you get started making pens?
I started making pens about 1.5 years ago. I was a big fountain pen collector and fan, and then I learned you can make your own, and I go hard in my hobbies, so I embraced it fully, and I'm loving doing it. It's really fun.
Now, do you have anything about making the pens that you find challenging?
Sanding and finishing, just because it's tedious. The other steps you can feel like a little more creative freedom and all that, but this sanding and finishing is just kind of, it's a bit monotonous. I'll say that.
Now, do you have a specific model that you make that sticks out to you as being your favorite?
Yes, my favorite is the Ursa with the clear caps, because I just love that I do a different color section, contrasting, and I'll do different glitters on the caps, and it's just fun to pick out all the materials and make them work with each other in a more cohesive way.
And now, what actually, other than, figuring out that you could do it, what drew you into the pen community?
Into the pen community or the maker community?
Either one.
Either one. Well, the fountain pens themselves are just super enjoyable to write with. Love that. But then the maker community, I was walking around and I would see things and think why don't they do this? Why don't they do more engraved nibs with fun designs or finials? And so I just kind of took off wanting to do all the things I wanted to see that I didn't see a lot of.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you so much for answering our questions. And you guys can find her here at the DC Pen Show. It's White Bear Pens, and we'll just take a look at some of her stuff. Thank you. We're here with Abbie and John from Maverick Pens at the 2024 DC Pen Show. And thank you guys for joining our interview here. So we just kind of wanted to talk to you guys about your company and about, you know, how things work. And yeah, I'll give you the floor, let you go ahead.
So I make all of our materials. Every single pen that we have on this table is made from our resin blanks. And John here, he does all of the turning. So we work together and play to each other's strengths of making some beautiful pens. And we're also known for a lot of our bright, fun colors. And we're wearing some of our pens, sort of, our special stratified.
How long have you guys actually been making pens?
I've been turning pens for about 4.5 years now, and I am pretty much self-taught and through trial and error. And then our first show was in Orlando, and
this is the first
really
time
been
in DC,
networking a lot and enjoying the first DC show that we've been to.
Okay, that's cool. Do you guys actually have a model that each one of you that you consider your favorite?
My favorite is the Marauder, which is the flat-ended. On majority of these are the flat-ended. I also try to keep the handmade element taper to all of the pens, so you'll find that all of them have a gentle taper on both the cap and the barrel.
And what about you, Abbie?
It's actually my favorite as well. And for a slightly different reason than his, it often for my resins really shows off the swirls and colors when they have the flat ends. So it's also my personal favorite.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us, and welcome for your first time for the 2024 DC Pen Show. Thank you guys so much for watching. So the last part of my video here is going to be me just kind of walking around and showing you the inside of the different showrooms. It was definitely a challenge for me to do this video. It was really hard. There was just so much ambient noise, and my camera and audio just kept picking up so many things or just dropping audio altogether. So I do apologize ahead of time. I did my best to edit out anything that might be too overwhelming. But thank you guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And my next video will be a pen show, DC Pen Show haul, and I'll show you all the wonderful things that I picked up at the show. Enjoy the rest of the video.
Thank you.
I don't. Like someone else might, but because I am not a illustrator, I am not a calligrapher, I just write. Yeah. So like to me, it's like someone would be like, my hand feels a little scratchy, and I'll be sitting there and I really gotta work to find it, make it feel scratchy.
That scratchy.
So when you run out of stuff, sometimes there's a little oil in there. There's a twist finish. Yeah.
I still haven't found my pen.